Well, welcome back this week. First of all, for you individuals who watch the machinations of the Council on Foreign Relations and that sort of thing, I would suggest that you look at William Jasper's article that's been posted on the New American website. And it is showing you that the CFR pretty much has a lock on all the new nominations for the Fed. And the title of the article is CFR Sweeps at Fed, or CFR Sweep at Fed. This is a prop that I'm going to use in this week's video, just to let you know this is a can of freedom. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'll explain it in a moment. One of the things that I saw in this morning's Wall Street Journal is a map. And it is a map of the North Pole, and it shows how much the polar ice cap will shrink over each decade until here it is today, and it'll shrink back to this little white dot by 2030. They know this somehow or another. They didn't know, for instance, that the polar ice cap would actually grow this year, but somehow they know that it will shrink with each decade until maybe we're going to have summer resorts up there. I don't know. But everywhere you go, you see this problem presented to you as fact. The polar ice is freezing. It's getting warmer in Antarctica. The water is going to rise and inundate so much of the world with the shrinkage of water. Of ice. I would like you to take an experiment. Do it at home. You can do it right there on your kitchen counter. Put some ice in a glass and then fill it with water. Now fill it up real close to where it almost goes over, but not quite. And watch what happens when that ice melts. I'll leave it to you to find out what will happen, but it won't be what you think. It's not going to run over. My ice is larger in volume than water. So any ice in water will actually shrink the volume of what it's in, so it'll never come over the lip of the glass. It's the same way with the polar ice cap. It's the same way with those things in Antarctica that go clear on from the surface down to the floor of the ocean. If those things melt, it will actually shrink the volume of water, not expand it. So you won't see a rise in water for that reason. At any rate, they scare you all the time. All of these things are aimed, as I said last week, I believe, at the human being. In other words, the human being is the problem. Human beings cause carbon dioxide levels to go up. And they don't tell you what the result of that would be to the forests. All experiments made with the increase in carbon dioxide in a controlled atmosphere increases the growth of foliage by at least a third. And I'm being conservative there. So you'd have more foliage, more greenery, more forests, etc., as a result of CO2 going up. They, in turn, provide oxygen for us. So it evens itself out. But all these charts that you see where the CO2 levels are going up until astronomically, first of all, they don't have any measurements for CO2 in the previous centuries. It's only been relatively recently in the history of man that they have any measurement of CO2. In the history of man, they didn't even know what CO2 was. So why would they measure it? But they have all of these charts to show you with the hockey stick that if we keep going the way the human beings are operating, the way we use our gas-driven cars and on and on and on, just breathing creates CO2. The thing is that it is not, behind all of this is the idea hidden, but if you look long enough you'll find it, is that we have to reduce the size of the population of human beings on Earth. Some of them say a sustainable level will be 1 billion. Well, that means we've got to eliminate an awful lot of people. How are we going to do that? These people that say these things never volunteer, by the way, to do what they say, lower the human population. Well, if you really believe that, go ahead, but not me. And so when you see these things and you go back and read the older books, the sustainable level was lower than that when we went beyond 1 billion. It's always lower than what it is currently. You can go back a couple of centuries and see that they only felt that maybe a couple of 100 million would be sustainable, on and on and on. And they use every excuse. But part of these things, in not only eliminating the human race, it is also curtailing the freedom of the citizens. Now, I've explained before that you cannot have an industrial society if you use wind and solar as your so-called renewable energy sources to supply energy to the population. You cannot have an industrial society with that level of electricity. You need great amounts of electricity. You cannot sustain a society unless you are using things that grow or things that are mined and producing something out of basically nothing. Producing cars and machinery and chairs or whatever out of iron ore becoming steel, or chairs out of the forest, or houses out of the forest, or anything else. You've got to have something where you take nature and change it into something that can be used by man and grow the economy. If you have a service economy, you will atrophy. You have to produce something out of nothing to grow the economy. You cannot grow the economy unless you are an industrial and heavily agricultural society. Can't be done. Even an agricultural society cannot grow in and of itself. It has to be linked to industry. And industry requires large amounts of energy. And it has to be able to be stored. Now, you cannot store solar energy and wind energy in any massive quantity. You can do it in batteries with your home, with that little thing you've got on top of your roof at your house. But you can't do it with the amount of energy that's necessary to run a massive population, let alone industry. Can't be done. And so the thing is, what do we do? How do we get this energy? There is storable energy, and energy that provides a great deal of electricity. Now take coal. That is a storageable energy. In and of itself, you can take a lump of coal in your hand, and that is energy. All you do is convert it to heat, fire, and that produces a turbine steam to turn turbines into electricity. And you can put it in a sack. You can put it in your trunk of your car. You can put it in a bin in your basement. You can take it and use it at will, whether it's the sun is shining or whether it's 0 degrees temperature. The same with this can. This can gives total freedom to the individual. He can put a gallon of gasoline or diesel oil or fuel oil in this, and he can take it anywhere and use it anytime. And this is why they're trying to cut back on the use of these fuels. It's not so much because of the carbon dioxide and that sort of thing that is produced, carbon monoxide and others. It's because you have total freedom with your ability to take gasoline and use it anywhere, in any way you deem fit. That gives you freedom, freedom of transportation. Freedom to exist on your own, free from government supplying you with energy through the wires, through utility programs and companies. This is why I call this a can of freedom. You can do anything you want with it, or not. But you see, this is the problem with going into these systems that provide electricity sanctioned and promoted by government, whether it's wind, dependent on the wind, solar, dependent on the sun, so on and so forth. These things are portable, storable. They're storable before you even use them. You don't have to make them into electricity. You don't have to put them in your car. You can do anything you wish with them. It's up to you at any time, at any place. And that's what they don't like about gasoline and, to a lesser degree, coal. The ultimate energy system, however, that's storable and will give you the maximum amount of energy in the safest manner, now I know this is not going to set too well with some of you, is atomic. With atomic energy, you actually have less deaths as a result. And that's a whole new video that I haven't got time to get into today. Maybe I will in the near future. Atomic energy is the freest. The only problem with it is it can also be tied to government, doesn't give you the freedom of movement that you desire, that gasoline, for instance, or gas, natural gas, any of those things that are storable on your property, in your car, in your basement, on your person will give you. Think about those things when you hear all these various programs the government is trying to get us involved in. They curtail freedom in addition to curtail the ability for us to rebound because we are no longer producing an industrial society. Until next week, we'll see you then.